I'm going to be talking about three types of intelligence. Now, there are lots of studies on intelligence and what it's made up of, and the most prominent example at the moment is that of artificial intelligence. I'm going to be talking about human intelligence, however, not the artificial type. First of all, what do we mean by intelligence? And I'm going to give a general definition here, which is that intelligence is a capability that we have, but it's also a process. And in my view, when we boil that process down, it has three steps, from apprehension through to sense making and then comprehension. Apprehension is not apprehension in the sense of anxiety, it's when we apprehend things. So there's something around us that we're perceiving or are aware of that as yet doesn't have shape to us, or a conceptual shape, hasn't begun to make itself intelligible to us. So intelligence is obviously the practice of making things intelligible. The first step then in apprehension is the awareness of something which we want to render intelligible but isn't yet. The second stage is then sense making, when we begin to organize the data in front of us into chunks, categories, units, and thus break it down and assimilate it to categories and thoughts and ideas perhaps that we've previously had. So this is the sense-making process. And then the third and final stage is what I would call comprehension. When the sense-making is complete, we've got things in satisfactory order and they're no longer causing us an effort of sense making. We have made sense and we comprehend in the sense of enclosing and now bounding what was initially merely apprehended and perhaps a little bit overwhelming. Another way of understanding that then is that intelligence is the process of turning what is external and unknown into something internal and known. So what was outside us was bigger and messier than we are, and then through the process of intelligence, it becomes smaller and tidier within us. Now I'm going to break it down into what I consider to be the three main types of intelligence. There's the technical, there is the relational, and finally the abstract. And in a bit more detail, I would say then that technical intelligence is the ability to make intelligible things like numbers and scientific problems. We might use logic, for example, in order to turn the external unknown into the internal known, as I was just saying. And this process can be thought of as an analytic one. It's known as IQ or cognitive. This is probably the most well-known form of intelligence and one that's widely accepted and often measured in intelligence tests. We then have, in my view, what I would call relational intelligence, latterly called EQ, I suppose, emotional intelligence. And this is the ability to be able to make sense of the human world and indeed animal world around us. It will involve things like empathy and a capacity to quote unquote read the room. Fundamentally, I think beneath it all is the capacity for self-awareness, so that this relational form of intelligence begins with self-relation. Can I understand myself? Do I know who I am in relation to myself? Can I make sense of myself, my thoughts and feelings and so on? And the third category is what I'm describing as abstract. And the reason for putting in a third category here, and in brackets I should say that some people have proposed models of intelligence which has as many as 16 different types. I'm just proposing three because I'm trying to boil it down to what I think are the most meaningful large order units of intelligence. The third one for me is what I'm calling abstract. And I've put this in because I think it's a form of intelligence that's not captured by the first two, either the technical or the relational. What do I mean by abstract intelligence? I mean the ability to create, the ability to be open to what might be spiritual, potentially even religious, the capacity to absorb, interiorize the aesthetic, and an ability to be open to what's new and different. So this is quite a different category of intelligence. If you think of the first type, the technical, as a narrowing in, this is more of an opening out. But underlying it is the same idea that we can somehow make sense of the world. For example, in the creative process, we're turning potential ideas into actual ideas. For example, through creating an artwork, a play, a drama, a piece of writing, and so on. And I think similarly with the idea of the spiritual becomes intelligible at some level rather than simply entirely other through a process of what I would call abstract intelligence. I think these examples in these three types correspond to a personal orientation we might each have. So I think those of us who are more technically intelligent tend to be oriented towards facts and data, to what is given. Those of us more oriented to relational intelligence would be perhaps more focused on people, and the question there would be what's going on with the people around me, what's happening. And the third type, I think, in terms of abstract intelligence, would be related to ideas. Are we oriented towards ideas? What's arising, what's to come, and so on. And I think a very simple way of understanding these three orientations would be in terms of past, present, and future. So a technical intelligence tends to analyze what is, what's already been given, the past, what's there. The second type is being in the present, tuning in to other people. And the third type is about the openness to what's to come. So you can sort of think about it in terms of past, present, and future. The technical, for example, in the case of giving a party, would be focused on, would there be enough food available for the party, when will it be held, and so on. So these are basic facts about the event, when to hold it, and so on. You'd be using your technical intelligence for that. You'd be using more of your relational intelligence when you begin to think about who will get on with whom, how I will be in that party. Maybe I'll be outgoing and very host-like, or maybe I'll be a bit shy. I might also be thinking about which groups might form. And again, that involves an exercise of intelligence to think through the mass of people who'll be there and put them into groups and so on. And then who's going to get on with whom. The third kind of intelligence, the abstract, then might be preoccupied with things like, what theme am I going to have for this party? Or what kind of atmosphere I'd like to create. Indeed, the overall sense of what it's going to be like as an event. This is almost a meta position, the abstract position, intelligence described here. A third position that isn't quite captured by either of the first two. So that would be an example of throwing a party. And the final example I'll give, say you're applying for a job, there might be three different types of intelligence involved. Technical intelligence, what skills do I have? We can analyze and isolate those. What skills are they looking for? Again, we can analyze and match them up with the skills that I have. And we might also think about the deal. What do I get in return for contributing these skills in terms of money and benefits and so on? So that would be technical intelligence applied to applying for a job. Relationally speaking, we then think about who will I be working with, where the power is, and how it will feel. So these are emotional, relational questions that we would be trying to make sense of when applying for a job and predicting the work environment we might find ourselves in. And then thirdly, abstract intelligence would be utilized, I think, in the process of a job application when we think about overall, where is this business going? What's the sense of the overall trajectory here? Where will it take me? What kind of a person will I become? What image of myself will I have? Again, this is more of a stand back perspective, putting things in a bigger picture, not necessarily related to the here and now, but related a little bit to the future and what's to come. So there we are. That's my take on three types of intelligence: transactions, technical, relational, and abstract. Thank you very much.